See that thing on my belt? Grab it. And whatever you do, don't let go. Here's your look at the new NECA Toys Batman the 1989 movie, Grapnel Launcher Replica. From the 1989 movie that defined Batman for the modern generation, this full-size replica of Batman's signature gadget, the Grapnel Launcher, is over 7 inches in length with a screen-accurate foldable handle, grapnel hook attachment, and a motorized spool that retracts the rope and hook after firing. First of all, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided this sample of the Batman 1989 Grapnel Launcher that we could have a look at in this review. Second of all, this is actually the second replica from the 1989 Batman movie that NECA Toys have released. Moving the Grapnel Launcher over, and don't worry, we will be looking at it shortly, we can bring in the 1989 Batarang Replica. Both of these are scaled as they were in the original 1989 movie. You'll notice one thing, though, about the Batarang. It did come included with the display stand. And even though I wasn't super crazy about the stand that they used and released with the Batarang, at the very least, it did come included with the display stand. The Grapnel Launcher that we will be looking at in this review sadly doesn't come a way to display it. It would have been actually nice if they had come included with like just a little standee that had, I don't know, just like a little resting cradle like this, and a little flat display placard stand down below that would have said the 1989 movie. But this one doesn't sadly come included with a display stand, whereas the Batarang did. And if you certainly would like to check out my full review of the Batarang, feel free to give that a gander after you've finished watching this video. Now, the grapnel gun actually requires batteries to be installed in order to function. It does fire the hook, but in order to winch that back, it actually needs to have the batteries installed. The batteries are installed into the top of the unit, and I'll show you that in a second, but there's strange batteries that you have to pick up and they're not included with it. You need LR1 batteries. I'm just showing you one of them just as an example of it. It sort of is like a regular AAA battery, but half the length. I just picked up I think about a dozen or so of them over on Amazon. It probably cost me about $8 or so, but at least I'll have these. They're just strange sized batteries. I guess for the size of the unit, it would be difficult to put in AAA batteries because, of course, when you're putting it in, they have to go into the top area here. I'm going to grab a screwdriver. I'm just going to unscrew the top of it so you can see what it looks like inside. I'm going to unscrew this just like this. I suppose I could have easily just told you where it would go and then go from there, but you know what? We're going to open this up, and I'm just going to lift the flap up. It's a little harder, kind of get that screw completely out of there. But we're just going to unscrew things like this, pop the lid off, maybe even get the screwdriver in there. There we go. And you'll see there's the LR1 battery. There's one there, and there's one there, and you slide basically 2 in until you lock them into place, and that will function, like I said, the winch winding it back up. Launching isn't so much the issue. It's winding back up the cable after you've fired off the hook. Before firing off the hook, though, let's have a closer look at the details here on the grapnel gun. It is a 1-to-1 scale replica of the one that Michael Keaton uses in the 1989 film. And it works the same way as well, though it won't latch onto a utility belt. I can't imagine everyone has a utility belt, maybe except for me. Anyways, though, if you flip it around to the back, similar to the movie, it does have a handle. The handle folds in flush against the side of the unit. And then when you want to have it held, you can either have it held like this, but if you want to also use the handle just flips down like this. And then it gives you just a little bit of an additional grip to hold this. This is the button right here that you'll then fire to fire off the hook, and believe you me, it'll shoot across the room. This is the retracting line to pull the cable back in. But again, before we do that, I want to show you guys a closer look at it. Primarily here, all molded in black. It does have, surprisingly, a fair bit of weight to it. The more of the weight seems more centered around this section here, where the actual hook fires off. The back feels a little lighter in comparison. I'll show you the battery compartment, which we already looked at on the top. There seems to even be like a little sight right at the top of the actual grapnel hook. I didn't realize it was even there in the movie. And then on the other side, this side opposing to where the handle actually is, you'll see sort of like a makeshift sculpted in line, indicating that this would have been the line that would have been fired off, but it's nice the way that they've sculpted that in there. So you would believe wound up, spooled inside here is the actual metal cabling that he uses to fire off. Additional touches I really like is the fact that they did sculpt in screws. These aren't real screws, mind you, but they've given you at least the indication that this would have been assembled in the Batcave by, of course, Bruce Wayne himself, or possibly even Alfred would have crafted these. It is basically all black except for the spooled area that's painted in silver. Of course, on the end of it is a very shiny, it almost seems like it's a vacuum-formed, vac-chromed finish, all done here nicely in the gold. The gold, sadly, is a fingerprint magnet. You probably already see several of my fingerprints have settled onto the surface of it, but it's very, very, very shiny. Now, again, to fire this, how it's going to work is, now you can, again, do it with or without the handle if you want to, but I like to fold the handle down. And then here is the trigger. Now, stressed on the side of the package, or actually I think it goes in on the back of the packaging, but I'll reiterate this. This has a tremendous force to it when it fires it off. And if you're in close proximity, I will tell you, this hook hitting even like your hand, you'll feel it. You might even see just a couple of little marks on my hand from where I was trying to stop it prior to shooting this part of the review. But to fire this, all you're going to basically do is take the button right here, and you'll launch the line way across the room. It just so happened that it bounced off the back of my backdrop and landed back at me, so I could actually show you guys what the hook looks like. It's an all gray piece, and then to winch that back up, first of all, just to show you the length of the line. Well, it's a little harder to kind of show you the length of the line. I would say it's probably at least, I don't know, maybe 18 inches in length. It's quite a long line. And then to wind things back up, you really want to make sure that you've got a straight enough cable so nothing's really tied up or making any knots. This is where the batteries are going to come into play. You're going to press the button on the top, and it's going to wind things up. Now, I will tell you, though, when you get to about this point, you're going to want to really push this in yourself. If you continue to push the button on the back to wind that up, I'll show you what ends up happening. For a second, when I took it out of the packaging, I thought it was broken, until I realized I ended up having to snap this back into place. And when you snap it, I'm going to turn around to the front so you can see what I'm doing here. If you push it down this way, what it's going to end up doing is it's going to push along the bottom carriage here of the launching part of the grapnel gun. Instead, you really want to twist it just a little bit so it clears around this area, and it also clears around the front of the barrel too. It feels like there's a lot of resistance, in all honesty, almost to the point where you're pushing to the point where maybe it would break. But just keep pushing it in, and you'll hear a locking as that locks back into place. And then to fire it off again, pressing the button, and it shoots way across the room. I think, in fact, I've actually latched onto something. Hold on, let me just go grab that. Funny enough, the hook actually hooked around a predator leg, and I was starting to reel a predator in before I had to stop myself. But again, to roll things back up, you're going to press the button on the top, and then from there, you're going to lock it back into place. And again, just avoid it. Twist it this way so you be able to fit it on either side. Because if you have it this way, you're going to be bending back the one prong of the hook. And then from there, for storage, you're going to flip this around and just fold the handle back into place. It's a perfect replica of the one that we saw from the 1989 movie. If anything, I would only offer up the advice of if they had included a display stand. Again, for some strange reason, we can bring in the Batarang. The Batarang came included with the display stand, and yet the grapple gun doesn't. The Grapnel gun doesn't. It would have been nice, maybe not similar to this. I still think that that was too bulky of a display stand, but if they had trimmed it down a little bit, where it was only just, say, prongs, a main bottom display base and just a couple of prongs that the Batarang could have rested on top of, they could have produced basically a generic stand that used for both the Batarang and then the Grapnel gun when they eventually released that. But at least we now have two of Batman's several gadgets in his arsenal released as 1-to-1 scale replicas, the actual replicas of the props that he used in the film. Now, I believe in the 1989 film, Batman has the grapnel launch with different head attachments that he pops in and out, swaps in and out, depending on what he needs the grapnel launcher for. There's the main line that we looked at in this review. There's a bolo snare that he hooks around Joker's leg, and then there's that hook attachment. But for obvious reasons, there's no way that they would be able to have something that would be working, because after all, it does fire off a line with a lot of torque, I might say, behind it. But there's no way that they would be able to still do that and still have the grapnel launcher with the swappable front head attachments. What they could always do, still making use of the mold down the road, because of course, if you want to get the most mileage out of your mold, find different ways to release it. They could release an ultimate grapnel launcher down the road with the different head attachments that you could pop in and out depending on how you want to have it displayed. Other than that being the lacking thing on it, it is a pretty accurate looking replica from the 1989 film, except for one part, which I didn't mention in this review. The part where the handle folds out. And you're not looking at it just yet, but it's going to be coming around. So just kind of be patient and you'll see it soon on the rotisserie. That back off circular shape, sort of like an oval shape that has the little screw holes in it, that actually should be silver rather than black. I'm not really sure why they didn't paint it the silver. Instead, they just molded it in the same black plastic. But I suppose if you really want it a little bit more screen accurate, then by all means, you could go in there with a paintbrush, a little bit of silver paint, and paint that in so it looks a little bit more screen accurate. Other than that, though, I really like the look of the grapnel launcher. It's a shame, though, it doesn't come included with the display stand. The Batarang came included with one, and yet the grapnel launcher doesn't. So I'm going to see if I can find something, I don't know, maybe online. I'm sure there's probably even talented 3D printing artists out there that are either making one or have already released some sort of, I don't know, docking station that you could mount smaller guns on, little replicas from screen-used sci-fi films, what have you. I probably could find something online that could mount the grapnel launcher on top of, because it's too good of a replica, I feel, just to have it resting like this. I would certainly like to have it propped upward, similar to what they did with the Batarang. Now, of Batman's gadgets, so far, we can check off the list, the grapnel launcher, and we got the Batarang. NECA did also tease the Gauntlets. Now, the Gauntlet is the thing that when Batman comes into that museum, fires off a line on either side, just before, of course, he retracts that out in front of the Joker's face. NECA has already teased that, so I'm sure down the road, in the not-so-distant future, we will be getting also the 1989 Gauntlets, which I'm really super excited for. And then I guess that really wraps up the rest of Batman's gadgets. I'm trying to think of other things he's had, probably gas capsules, but gas capsules would be a little bit more difficult to. At least a Batarang, a grapnel launcher, and the Gauntlet, yes, yes, yes. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of the Batman 1989 grapnel launcher replica that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of it? Weigh your thoughts in. Let me know down below in the comments section. And also, if you're new here, you've straggled in from out of town and discovered this channel, thank you. And if you're enjoying the content as well, thank you. And if you'd like to, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure as well you're turning on that bell notification. And make sure as well you're coming back to this channel regularly, because we will be looking at more NECA reviews in the not-so-distant future. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.